I stumbled upon 3 terrifying true stories that will haunt you forever. I never should have opened that door. But curiosity got the better of me. Just a regular Wednesday night, I was buried in blankets, scrolling through my phone. The clock ticked down, shadows grew long. An unsettling chill crept into the room, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. Suddenly, an alert popped up. A chilling tale about a missing person in a small town. My stomach twisted. This was no ordinary story. Legends whispered of a stranger lurking in the woods. No one ever came back. I dove deeper. Each word pulled me in. A dark vortex of suspense. I pictured the town-dim streets, flickering streetlights. I could almost smell the damp earth, hear the leaves rustle. Then came another alert. It was about a haunted asylum, its walls seeped in misery. A nurse, driven mad by the cries of the patients, vanished without a trace. I felt a shudder. The air felt thicker. Rooms that once saw hope now whispered secrets of despair. I glanced around my dim-lit room, bracing myself for something behind me. My heart raced. Was it just me? Or was that a whisper? No, a faint knock. I turned towards the sound. Breathing intensified. Shadows danced in the corners. The noises grew soft, scratching, like fingernails on wood. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then, the third-story surfaced a tale of an abandoned house. Kids dared each other to spend the night. No one ever finished. Laughter turned to screams, and those echoes haunted their dreams. I could almost see it now. Cracked windows, vines clawing at the walls, the air thick with dread. I wanted to laugh it off, but fear wrapped around my chest like a vice. I heard another knock, louder. My pulse quickened. This wasn't funny anymore. Shadows crept closer. Whispers turned into a cacophony. My skin tingled with a chilling realization. In that moment, I regretted every choice leading me here. The stories were merging, weaving a net around me. I felt trapped, suffocated. Another loud bang echoed through the stillness. Then the door creaked open just a crack. I held my breath, every nerve screaming. What was waiting on the other side? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the door creaked wider, a flicker of movement just beyond the threshold caught my eye. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more grotesque than the last. The shadows seemed to cling to the doorframe, warping the space around it. For a moment, I thought I could make out a figure silhouette hovering in the dim light, slightly swaying as if caught in a gentle breeze. I was paralyzed, caught in the web spun by my own curiosity and fear. Then, a cold gust rushed through the opening, sending a wave of dread crashing over me. It carried a scent that twisted my stomach, a mix of mold and decay, as if the very essence of the asylum had seeped into my room. I could hear whispers now, coiling and spiraling into an incoherent chant. Each word felt like a shard of glass, slicing through the silence. Help us. They seemed to cry, but their voices were distorted, buried beneath layers of anguish. Gathering my courage, I took a hesitant step forward, tiptoeing toward the door that now felt like a portal to hell. The outline of the figure sharpened. A fleeting glimpse of a gown, frayed at the edges, hanging lifelessly from a gaunt frame. I blinked, and it vanished, leaving only an oppressive silence in its wake. Heart racing, I leaned closer to peer through the crack, the hinges groaning like the dying breaths of the damned. The hallway stretched before me, an abyss lined with shadows that seemed to ripple and twist, as if they had a life of their own. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, shut the door, and lock it tight. But the pulse of that haunting curiosity beat in my chest. Suffocating in its insistence, I stepped through the threshold, my footfall echoing in the stillness, the air heavy with unspoken horrors. The whispers elevated, swirling around me. You shouldn't be here. A warning that tugged at the edges of my sanity. I glanced back, half expecting to find my room replaced by a gaping maw of darkness. But it was there, a distant glow flickering behind the now closed door, offering false comfort in this unsettling place as I ventured deeper. The wooden floorboards beneath me pulsed faintly as if they were alive, each creak amplifying the weight of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. The walls, draped in peeling paint, were marked with stains of what could only be blood. I traced my fingers along their surface, shocked to find that the marks were more than just discolored paint. They were deep, almost as if someone had clawed their way to escape. Out of the corner of my eye, movement caught my attention. A figure dashed past one of the doorways, a fleeting shadow, too fast to recognize, vanishing around the corner. It sent a jolt of adrenaline racing through me. I wasn't alone. The incensed air thickened with a sense of dread, urging me to flee, but what awaited in the darkness felt far worse than whatever lurked behind me. Instinctively, I began to follow the trace of the figure, each step heavier than the last, an invisible tether drawing me deeper into the heart of this nightmare. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. Find us, they called, entwined with cries that chilled me to the bone. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated behind me, causing me to spin around. A door swung wide, echoing ominously down the corridor. My heart hammered in my chest, every shadow now alive, twisting shapes beckoning me towards the heartbeat of the unknown. Just as I mustered the courage to move, a banshee-like wail pierced the silence, freezing me solid. Something powerful and malevolent rode the wind, a force that seemed aware of my presence. I stumbled back, grappling for the door I had come through, but where it had been was now only a wall of flat, unyielding darkness. The whispers joined the wails, an overwhelming chorus urging me to join them, to surrender to the horror that enveloped me. And then, right in front of me, the figure reappeared, a face twisted in anguish, eyes pleading and desperate. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat, but before I could react, it lunged at me, a glimpse of fingers extending out like talons ready to snatch my soul away. Just as it reached me, the world spun, the ground beneath vanished, and I fell into a chasm of blackness. I hit the floor hard, gasping, but felt no pain. Instead, a surge of cold washed over me, and I realized I was no longer alone. There were others here, trapped in an eternal scream. Staring into the void, a gruesome truth dawned on me. Were the lost ones from the stories. The missing, the mad, and now, they were desperate to add another. The darkness was alive, pulsing with intent. I could feel it creeping closer, surrounding me in its grasp. The last thing I heard before slipping into oblivion was a faint whisper, echoing in the darkness as it approached. You belong with us now. I awoke in a cold sweat, the air around me dense with despair, and the relentless whispers now morphed into a million voices, each one vying for my attention, each one telling me their story. I was in a dimly lit room that seemed to stretch infinitely. The walls dripped with shadows that reached toward me like the fingers of the damned. They caressed my skin, cold and clammy, sending shivers through my very soul. Glancing around, I sought a source for the noise that pervaded the space, feeling a mounting sense of dread as filaments of sanity began to unravel. The room was cluttered with remnants of lives long abandoned. Broken furniture, stained linens, and shattered glass scattered like a graveyard of sorrow. It felt as if the room itself was a mausoleum, housing stories that had no rest. Help us! Help us! The echoes cried, their tones seeping into the cracks of my consciousness, whispering fragments of their tragic pasts that twisted my heart with an unbearable weight. My mind flashed back to the figure I had seen earlier, its face, stricken with fear and longing. It had been a harbinger of despair, a warning wrapped in shadows. That I stumbled to my feet, driven by a primal need to escape this crypt of horrors. Yet all paths seemed to lead deeper into the labyrinthine dread. My pulse quickened as I caught sight of a mirror, its glass coated in dust, yet it seemed to shimmer ominously, beckoning me closer. Reluctantly, I approached, my reflection swirling ominously within its depths. But instead of my own terrified face, I saw fleeting images of the lost souls, twisted visages screaming silently, faces contorted in terror, all pleading for release. Suddenly, the image shifted and I was yanked from the mirror's grip, my breath catching because something lurked behind me. I spun around, only to come face to face with the very figure, that haunted meth entity I had chased in the darkness. Its features were now clearer, the tattered gown whispering against the floor like rustling leaves in a graveyard. Her sunken eyes bore into my soul, hopelessly searching for recognition. "Help me," she implored, her voice a chilling caress that slithered under my skin, igniting a fire of empathy tempered with terror. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could utter a sound, an unseen force slammed me backward, sending me crashing against the wall, splintering the air with a deep crack. The walls throbbed as if reacting to my fear, veins of pulsing darkness stretching from the edges of the room, coiling toward me like serpents. I felt the room constricting, drawing the dimensions closer until I could almost feel the breath of the shadows sharing my space, hungry and expectant. Everything snapped into utter chaos, the shadows writhing around me, muttering in a frantic language, a tide of fear crashing over my heart. Tightening its grip, the figure wailed, her expression morphing from sorrow to rage, and in a sudden flash, she lunged toward me, her hands a blur of desperation. I stumbled back, eyes wide with panic, tumbling over the broken furniture that scraped against my skin, leaving tracks of cold terror. "Not again! Not again!" I gasped. The mirror shimmered, and before I knew it, a cacophony of screams filled the room, shaking the very foundation of the asylum. My heart raced as the walls echoed back the anguished cries of souls longing for salvation as I scrambled for the door. A heavy door, seemingly made of stone, emerged from the shadows, an exit or a snare. I hesitated, feeling its pull, like a siren's song promising refuge from the chaos. Yet, a sense of dread overwhelmed me. Could I trust a door materialized from the darkness? Then came a thunderous boom, the sound reverberating through my bones. The very ground beneath me cracked, fissures crawling across the floor, erupting with grotesque faces, screaming silently as their mouths gaped wide, calling for someone to join them in their eternal torment. Desperation surged through me as I hurled myself toward the door, twisting the handle with all my strength. It wouldn't budge. The figure stumbled back, retreating into the darkness, her whispers merging with the discord around me. "Stay, stay with us." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, engulfing the room, relentless, a black wave beneath which there was no escape. I screamed, adrenaline fueling my actions, pushing against the door one last time, fully aware that the darkness wanted nothing more than to claim me. And just as the shadows seemed to close in, wrapping tight around me, I caught one last glimpse in the mirror. My own reflection distorted, anguished, and surrounded by countless hands reaching out from the depths, fingers grasping at me as if to say, "You're just like us now, you will never escape." With a final heave, the door shattered open, light flooding in as I tumbled through, only to find myself face to face with an entirely new horror. A hall filled with doors, every one of them whispering, each one holding a fractured soul waiting to be freed or to take me. The choice was unbearable, a voice within the void beckoning. With the shadows whispering behind me, I realized too late I would have to choose which door to open or be lost to the darkness forever. I stepped hesitantly into the corridor, each door pulsing faintly as if alive, their whispers melding into a single, heart-wrenching plea. "Open me, save me, choose me." The air thickened around me, saturated with desperation and dread, pressing against my chest like a leaden weight. My instincts screamed for me to flee, yet some morbid curiosity tethered me to this grim threshold, compelling me to confront the unspeakable. With a trembling hand, I reached for the nearest door. It was old, its surface scarred with age and neglect, whispering promises of secrets long buried. I leaned in closer, putting my ear against the wood. A soft weeping emerged, the sound of someone mournfully lamenting a lost hope. My heart ached, each thud reverberating through my body like a heartbeat of the very house itself. "Please just let me out," the voice wove around my mind, dilating my pupils with fear. But what awaited within could just as easily be salvation or damnation. I hesitated, torn between the pull of the voice and the gnawing anxiety slithering up my spine. Choose. Every whisper seemed to echo that word, each door pulsating as if impatiently waiting to reveal its secrets and its horrors, swallowing hard. I turned to the next door, this one adorned with incomprehensible symbols carved deep into the Wuda language lost to time, perhaps. I pressed my ear against it, and instead of weeping, I heard laughter. It was a high-pitched, manic sound that sent chills racing up my arms. "Come play with us, we've been waiting for you." It mocked me, dancing on the edges of sanity. "No," I cried out, backing away, my pulse racing as the laughter transformed into shrill shrieks, resonating with agony. I couldn't fathom what awaited behind that door, but something told me those spirits were trapped in a nightmare of their own making, desperately devoid of escape. Just as I was in my frantic escape, I stumbled toward a third door at the end of the hall, this one seemingly untouched by time. It emanated a cold stillness, an eerie calm that prickled at my skin. As I turned the tarnished handle, the door creaked open with a maddening slowness, revealing a pitch-black chamber inside. The temperature dropped drastically, and I could feel the chill clawing at my bones. "Come in," a disembodied voice drifted from within, soft and inviting yet laced with malevolence. "I know you." It sounded all too familiar, resonating like a haunting melody that tugged at the fringes of my mind. Suddenly, memories cascaded into the forefront. That desolate night when I had seen the flickering lights at the abandoned asylum as a child, the whispers that had called me in the dark, the inexplicable pull I had always felt that brought me to places I should never have gone. In a frenzy, I slammed the door shut, panting. I had barely made my decision when the air shifted, the shadows from the hallway lengthening, wrapping around me. The voices became more frantic, a symphony of sorrow echoing in the confines of my mind. They implored, begged, and threatened, weaving a web of despair that threatened to ensnare my will. "You cannot escape. You must choose one," they cried, a cacophony that threatened to drown out my thoughts. Just then, as I stumbled backward, aware of the pressing darkness, my foot slipped on something slick. I glanced down, and to my horror, I found a pool of ichora thick, dark fluid pulsing like the beat of a heart, twinkling like stars but stained and foul. Merely the sight of it inclined a demonic presence coiling within its depths that I looked back up, finding the three doors closing in on me, shadows swirling around their edges as they beckoned me with sibilant whispers. The walls contorted, seeming to breathe, constricting the space as if eager to see which door I would choose, lusting for the agony it yearned to unleash. With a burst of adrenaline, I sprinted toward the closed door, the one whose whispers called to me with an eerie familiarity, but before I could reach the handle, the very ground trembled beneath me. The darkness behind the doors surged forth as a monstrous, intangible force, threatening to swallow me whole. I hesitated, glancing behind at the cacophony of voices pleading for help. Before I could brace myself, the ground cracked open, revealing a void that yawned hungrily, filled with writhing shadows and ghastly faces, each echoing a silent scream of unending torment. "Choose or be chosen," the chorus screamed, and as I teetered on the brink of the abyss, I threw my arms out to catch my balance, feeling the world tilt beneath me. Faced with the shadows clawing at my heels, I glimpsed the faces of the damned stretching out from the darkness, and my breath caught in my throat as I realized I was about to become one of them. So, which door would claim me, and would I emerge with a soul left intact, or be lost forever within the horrors waiting to be unlocked? As destiny beckoned, I could only brace myself for what could come next. The ground continued to quake violently beneath me, a monstrous thrum shaking the very foundation of the building. I felt as if reality was peeling away, revealing the malformed, pulsating nightmares lurking just beneath the surface. The hideous faces in the abyss contorted in unison, noses and mouths stretching into abominable shapes, all of them merging into one horrid visage, glistening eyes that reflected my own dread. Every instinct urged me to run, to flee from the impending doom, but my feet felt glued in place, as if the shadows were tightening their grip around my ankles. From the depths of the darkness, a cold wind swept across the corridor, carrying the rancid scent of decay and despair. It snaked around me, wrapping me in a fetid embrace. "Help me," a voice wailed, sharper than the others, slicing through the darkness. "Please, I'm trapped." The plea tugged at something deep within me, igniting a spark of empathy amidst my fear. I glanced back at the void, trepidation coursing through me. "Who are you?" For a moment, all was silent except for the roiling shadows that flickered and hissed around me. Then, unmistakably, a face broke through the waves of darkness. A young girl peered from the blackness, her cheeks streaked with dirt and tears. Her eyes, wide and pleading, were filled with an accentuated vividness that threatened to draw me in completely. "I don't know how long I've been here," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the clamor. "I thought I could make it out if you helped me. But if you open one of the doors, you'll be free. I promise." The fabric of logic was dissolving. I could feel the weight of the sorrowful shadows pressing closer, nudging me toward the nearest door, an insidious compulsion coaxing me to act before the abyss could reclaim me. The girl's gaze flickered between hope and dread, her fragile existence tethered to the fabric of my decision. But the closer I drew to the door, the more I felt a disorientation deep within my core. The incessant whispers ramped up their urgency. "Take her place. Set her free." "No," I shouted back, frustration boiling within me. "She deserves to escape. Not me." "Do you really think she's innocent?" A voice sneered, this one deeper, more sinister. It resonated like thunder, wrapping around my heart with icy fingers. "She's just a bait to lure you in further. She's one of them, just like you will be." My breath quickened, terror clawing at my insides. The shadows danced playfully around the girl, melding with her, distorting her features momentarily into something monstrous before slipping back into their tortured rhythm. Behind me, the cracks in reality widened, splintering, and I heard the distant voices soar to a cacophonous crescendo, every syllable laced with malice. "Choose, choose, choose." The walls of the corridor shivered, their surfaces rippling like water, the doors straining against their frames in eager anticipation. The girl's form flickered again, and she paled, desperation settling over her like a shroud. "Please just help me." "There's no time." With a sudden rush, clarity came through the haze of panic. This was a gamia malignant design of despair, and if I followed the voices blindly, I would lose everything. In a moment of willful rebellion, I took a step back from the door. "I want choose. I want succumb to your games." But the shadows twisted violently, surging toward me with a rabid thirst for my compliance. The girl's eyes widened in horror, and the abyss below me roared with crescendoing fury. "You don't understand. If you don't choose now, they will take you instead. You're the offering." Panic clawed up my throat as I felt icy tendrils brush against my ankles, something inescapable lurking beneath the surface of the void, ready to pull me down. With a heavy heart, it hit meth faces rising from the depths blended with familiar shapes from my past. Lost friends, forgotten faces, all contorted into grotesque hollows of anguish. Their mournful gazes seared into my soul, and I recognized then that I was not alone in this torment. "Choose, or let them take you." The girl screamed, and the darkness surged with a savage hunger. That moment, I was torn, caught between the will to save the girl and the imminent threat of the shadows claiming me as their own. My heart raced as I was forced to confront an agonizing reality. Either I become the architect of someone else's suffering, or my fate would be sealed by those I sought to escape. In that agonizing instant, I felt the walls around me begin to close in, the laughter of the damned erupting around me, each whisper a reminder of the impossible choice laid out before me. Choose or be swallowed whole. Time hung still, yet urgency suffocated me. As I clenched my eyes shut against the spiraling darkness, a guttural growl erupted from the depths of the voided otherworldly beast, emerging with relentless hunger, its singular focus upon me. I felt its breath, rancid and suffocating, wrapping around me like a noxious fog. I opened my eyes just as the girl's shriek echoed through the corridor, an anguished plea before the void opened wide, the ground beneath me screaming as tendrils shot out, grasping, pulling me toward the yawning maw of darkness. In that terrifying split second, I realized I could no longer delay the inevitable. As my limbs grew heavy, My mind raced and my heart pounded. The choice became glaringly clear, but the horror of that choice paralyzed me as I teetered on the precipice. Yet even as the darkness gathered, a single thought crystallized in my mind. Was I ever truly free to choose it all? The true horror lay in the realization that there may be no escape from the abyss, that perhaps we are all locked in our own private hells, waiting for that final choice to be made. And just then, from behind one of the closed doors, I heard a familiar laughter, echoing from within, sending icy shivers down my spine. "Come play with us, we've been waiting for you." The laughter echoed through the corridor, an unsettling chime that sent ripples of dread crawling over my skin. It was a sound I'd heard before, an echo of distant memories and nightmarish remnants that clawed at the edges of my consciousness. Desperation surged within me. I fought the pull of the shadows, every fiber of my being screaming to resist the darkness's twisted allure. With trembling hands, I pressed my back against the cold, unforgiving wall, my heart slamming against my ribs as I strained to find clarity within the chaos. The flickering lights overhead cast eerie, distorted shadows that danced menacingly, as if they were alive, teasing me, urging me toward the false promise of freedom beckoning from behind the door. "Don't listen," the girl's voice cried, desperate and frayed. "They're all liars. They'll consume you like they did me." But beneath her panic lay something else, fear, undeniably genuine, and I couldn't shake the thought that there was truth in her desperation. The laughter morphed into whispers, curling around my thoughts like curling smoke, each phrase obscured yet layered with a dreadful familiarity. "Join us," they called. "It's where you belong." My mind clawed at the edges of sanity, the desire to understand what awaited me behind the door melding with the terror of what lay in the shadows. As the tendrils of darkness crept closer, I felt a sickening pull from within, the walls urging me to succumb to the terror and navigate deeper into that void. "Choose." The shadows screeched, a cacophony of discordant voices ringing out in unison, drowning all logic and thought in an avalanche of urgency. "Time is running out, fate is waiting." I felt myself sliding nearer to the door as tears formed in my eyes. The girl's anguished scream faded, engulfed by a tide of escalating horror. "Run," she urged, but the shadows pulled more intently, and the ground wrenched beneath my feet, threatening to swallow me whole. Then, I made a decision, a choice born from pure instinct. I turned and bolted down the corridor, ignoring the beckoning laughter, the tantalizing promise of liberation that came from behind the door. With every step, the walls pulsed and throbbed, the corridor constricting like a serpent ready to strike. The girl's cries fell silent, swallowed by the consuming dark, and I could feel dread's icy fingers slip around my throat as I ran. I finally glanced over my shoulder. The shadows stretched and clawed, transforming, splintering into grotesque shapes, revealing the screeching faces of those I once knew. They were tormented souls twisted in agony, their eyes wide with terror and despair, mouths open in silent screams that reverberated through the air. "No!" I screamed, stumbling as I ran, nausea twisting my stomach. The familiar faces morphed into something unrecognizable, a chilling reminder of every moment I had ever felt powerless, every fragment of my shattered past surging up like a tidal wave, enveloping me in shame and horror. I slammed through a doorway on my left, throwing myself into a dimly lit room. Breathlessly, I spun around, scanning the walls in panic. The room felt alive, as if it were breathing with the remnants of despair. A lone candle flickered on an old table, casting shadows that moved against their own will. The air reeked of mildew and something metallic, sending my senses into a frenzy. "Hello?" I managed to croak, my voice echoing eerily in the cavernous space. The flickering flame danced, illuminating fleeting images on the wall, scenes of torment, of loss, of those who had come here before and would never leave. Then I saw them. Specters grim and haggard, emerging from the corners of the room, their faces shrouded in sorrow. They moved silently toward me, mouths forming words that I couldn't hear, yet every face expressed a desperate plea. An elder man with faded eyes extended his bony hand toward me, beckoning me closer, his mouth moving frantically as if desperate to impart a warning. "This is a trap," he moaned, and I could sense the coldness of his dread seep into my bones. The darkness will not release you. You must get out. Don't trust the others. My mind raced, battling against the terror that threatened to engulf me. The shadows outside the door vibrated with malicious intent, clawing at the frame, eager to drag me back into their grasp. Suddenly, the girl's face flashed in my mind, her pleading eyes imploring me to save her above all. But whom could I trust? The whispers grew louder outside the room, a maelstrom of voices howling for me. Then, just as the temperature plummeted, I realized the candle flickered dangerously low, a warning of impending darkness, of a real threat emerging from the shadows. With one panicked decision, I spun toward the door, and just before I crossed the threshold, the man's anguished scream pierced the air. Whatever you do, don't look back. I dashed out into the corridor, the shadows swirling around me with an insatiable hunger. Just as I ran, a figure darted past, pale and familiar. It was the girl, her face a mask of desperation as she screamed at the top of her lungs. "They're coming for you. Run." But before I could grasp the enormity of it, the corridor abruptly shifted, walls collapsing inward, and the laughter resumed, jeering, mocking, reverberating through the hall as it twisted around me. In that moment, everything felt inevitable: the shadows, the laughter, the faces of despair, closing in on me with ferocity. I sprinted down the corridor, hearing the girl's distant cries fade into the maelstrom of haunting laughter as darkness descended, the echo of my racing heart drowned out by sinister whispers promising what awaited behind each door. And as I turned the next corner, I was faced with a mirror, its surface rippling like water, and I swallowed hard. In its depths, I saw not just my reflection but an entire world of reflection staring back, distorted and writhing with other countless versions of myself. The mirror glimmered menacingly, and before I could comprehend the scene, I felt my reflection reach out, and the surface began to crack. With a final surge of icy dread, I realized I was no longer in control, my body feeling foreign and heavy as I stood paralyzed, locked in a gaze of horror. I knew then that whatever fate awaited me, I had become part of the darkness, and I was only just beginning to unravel the truth. The chilling laughter blossomed around me, finally revealing the faces behind it, as 1,000 mirrored pairs of eyes whispered in unison, "Welcome back, it's time for the games to begin again." The shadows slithered as I stepped closer to the mirror, the fracturing surface shimmering ominously like black ice beneath my feet. Each crack echoed a whisper, "Join us, embrace the truth." A chill swept through the corridor, wrapping around me like a snake tightening its grip, squeezing out every ounce of warmth from my body. "Stay away," I gasped, reeling back, only to collide with the cold wall behind me. Faces swarmed the glass, flickering like candle flames, eyes wide with terror, mouths silent yet screaming in an eternal wail that gripped my heart with a vice-like hold. I wanted to look away, to break free of this nightmare, but the pull was intoxicating, seducing my senses with promises of revelation, insight into the darkness I had only begun to understand. The mirror seemed to pulse, and images flickered across its surface, scenes of torment, minutes stretching into hours, lifetimes lost in the blink of an eye. Shattered moments played out like fragments of a fractured film reel. I saw myself weeping, the salt of my tears merging with the shadows that crept around me, strangling every breath I took. I tried to pull away, but my feet were anchored in place, roots of despair intertwining with my very being. "Do you remember?" 1,000 voices hissed from within. Every wretched moment you thought forgotten, every scream drowned by silence. "Welcome back to your truth, Dano," I cried out, panic ripping through me as I stumbled, grasping for the edges of reality. "I won't be a part of this." But the laughter around me crescendoed, electrifying the air with a terrifying intimacy that rested on the edge of madness. The faces pressed against the glass distorted further, their mouths stretching into cruel, impossibly wide grins. They were no longer just twisted reflections. They were witnesses, an audience to my unraveling, reveling in my fear. Suddenly, through the chaos, I heard a faintest sound, a whisper that broke through the clamor like glass shattering in silence. "Help me." The voice, though weak and trembling, resonated deep within my soul, sending shivers cascading down my spine. It was unmistakably the girl, her fragile plea clawing through the din of laughter and despair. I clenched my fists, the distinction of her voice igniting a spark of determination buried beneath the suffocating dread. "Where are you?" I shouted, my voice echoing, competing with the tempest of shadows swirling around me. "What do you want from me?" The mirror rippled again, shifting violently as the shadows poured forth, coiling around my ankles, attempting to drag me deeper into its churning abyss. "She's lost," the screaming faces wailed. "Just like you." I could feel them crawl under my skin, the darkness seeping into my veins, whispering secrets of despair and abandonment. But I couldn't let go of her. It was not just my fate at stake now. It was hers. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, I tore my eyes from the mirror, propelling myself back down the corridor. I ran as if my life depended on it, the laughter and whispers morphing into a shriek that followed every frantic step I took. The hallway stretched infinitely, doors lining the walls, each one whispering promises of horrors concealed behind the stained wood lives lived and lost, beckoning me to explore their dark destinies. I grabbed the nearest doorknob, trembling as I twisted it, feeling it resist at first, like the building itself fought to keep me from whatever nightmare lay within. The door finally creaked open, revealing a dim, flickering light that danced wildly inside the room. I stepped in, heart hammering, hoping to find answers, only to be met by the familiar scent of mildew laced with something sweetly pungent. The room was lined with mirrors, similar to the frightening one in the corridor. Each one showed distorted images of the girl, trapped in a reflection of her own helplessness. "Help me," she pleaded in a chorus of whispers. I lunged toward the nearest mirror, the surface beckoning like an open wound, but the shadows leapt forth from the cracks, their ghastly forms swirling around me in a chaotic frenzy. "She's lost," they bellowed, reaching for me, their grasp cold and desperate, each figure pulling me in different directions, each pleading with built-up agony and pouring despair. "Stop," I cried, desperately fighting against their cold touch. "Let her go. Take me instead." In that moment of clarity, I saw her face in one of the mirrors. It was pressed against the surface, echoing the pain of longing. Her eyes glossed over with tears of terror. I slammed my palm against the glass, yearning to touch her, to reach through the depths of this shadowy prison. But just as my fingertips grazed the cold surface, a shock pulsed through me, sending waves of blackness spiraling inwards. "It's too late," the shadows screamed, their voices a cacophony of torment, engulfing the air around us. Just as I thought I might drown in that crushing darkness, the mirror shattered suddenly, the shards exploding outward, raining down like a torrent of glassy stars. I felt a rush of cold air sweep through the room, sending the shadows shrieking back, their tendrils dissipating into wisps of smoke. And then, as the shards of glass fell to the ground, I collapsed to my knees amidst the sparkling debris, the light unable to reach the dark corners of my heart. I was lost, the laughter still echoing, filling the silence with malign intent. I looked up and saw the girl's reflection looming in one of the remaining mirrors, her face filled with desperation and awe. "You freed me," but her eyes widened as she glanced behind me, terror clinging to her features. That I turned slowly, dread stitching my insides as I felt the weight of the shadows returning, pouring in like a tidal wave, drowning all hope. "Whatever you do," she whispered, her face fading, "don't look at them." But it was too late. As the darkness surged, I glimpsed the figures emerging from the walls, crawling forth with could be seen across their me own face, distorted by torment, millions of reflections staring back with twisted grins filled with malice. In that chilling moment of connection, I understood. The laughter was mine, the darkness was mine, and what lay ahead was a revelation that could shatter not just the mirrors but my very spirit. "Welcome back, dear shadow," came the echoing welcome of the figures, their voices melding with the laughter, as they surrounded me, reaching out, offering twisted familiarity in a growing storm. Let the games begin. And the last thing I remember was the girl's desperate scream dissolving into the chaotic symphony before everything faded to black. Darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating, whispering sweet promises of oblivion. My senses faded as the cacophony of laughter and screams dulled into a somber silence that pressed against my ears like waves crashing against jagged rocks. With every breath, I felt the weight of the shadows around me, twisting like vines, wrapping me tighter in their grip. I blinked, trying to reconcile the nightmare before me, but my vision was clouded. I could see nothing, only feel the remnants of the shattered mirrors digging into my skin, as if urging me to remember. The chilling thrill of being alive slipped away from me, replaced by an icy terror that settled into my bones. Then, as if responding to my thoughts, the darkness retreated gently, illuminating the room in ghostly shimmer. The walls, lined with mirrors, glimmered like the surface of a disturbed lake, each glass panel reflecting parts of nightmares that scraped at the edges of my mind. Visions flickered, alternating between the girl's frightened face and grotesque figures that seemed to carve themselves from the air itself. That I am here. The girl's voice broke through, fragile and haunting, threading through the remnants of despair like a lifeline tossed amidst a storm. But it felt distant. I couldn't tell if it was a lure or a warning. Where? I called out, grasping at the fading whispers. What do you need from me? Search, she urged, her voice growing softer, more ephemeral. But beware what you seek. Before I could grasp the weight of her words, the mirrors trembled as if alive. A massive crack split the glass right before me, extending vertically, a dark fissure against gleaming silver. I reached for it hesitantly, heart racing with the promise of revelation, of distance from the shadows that threatened to consume me. But then they returned, flowing like smoke, swirling among the mirrors, their eyes piercing through the growing light. Instead of repeating my name, they now sang in unison, their discordant melodies wrapping around me like a hugga strangling embrace. Look at what you've become, they crooned, each taunt reverberating through my soul, echoing my doubts and fears, each one cracking the fragile veneer of sanity. You're one of us forever lost that I am not. I shouted, each heartbeat like thunder in my chest. I will not belong to this. Yet I felt it, a muscle memory in my hearten ache for the darkest corners of this very existence. The shadows laughed, a rhythmic pulsation that resonated in my bones as I instinctively stumbled backward without warning. The air grew thick with despair, and suddenly the girl appeared before men through the mirrors. But there, in the room, flesh and blood yet somehow tinged with an iridescent glow. You must find the key, she gasped, colliding against me with insistent desperation. It's hidden among the reflections. I'd have asked her what she meant if the ground hadn't just shifted beneath my feet, and the walls began to ripple, reminding me of everything I had tried to escape. You need to understand, she continued, but the urgency twisted in her eyes, flickering like the dying embers of a flame. You need to remember before it all sinks back into shadow. Suddenly, a piercing shriek reverberated across the room, shattering the moment, the sound brimming with agony and rage. Shadows burst forth from their confines, lunging towards us like snarling beasts. I instinctively pushed the girl behind me, clutching at her arm, but the darkness swarmed around her like a shroud, and for a split second, I saw her face twist in horror. Run! She screamed, her figure vanishing into the growing chaos as the shadows engulfed her. Desperation clawed at my heart as I turned to the remaining mirrors, desperate to find her once more. Each reflection twisted horrifyingly before my eyes, faces that were mine, writhing in pain and torment amidst the malevolent laughter. I choked out, pressing my hand against the glass, desperate to break through once more. But it responded not with warmth but with a keen, biting cold that wrapped like barbed wire around my wrist. With each second, I felt the darkness pushing closer, the laughter growing chaotic, sharp claws digging into reality. Find the key, she cried again, her voice fractured but surging through me like a pulse. A moment of clarity washed over me. My eyes darted to one mirror, marginally brighter than the others, revealing something shimmering in the shards. Instinctively, I pounced toward it, feeling the shadows lash out with violence, gnashing teeth echoing in wrath behind me. I clawed at the glass as the air around me thickened, oppressive and Olivia creature pulsating with dread. Each pull of the shards sliced my skin, but they held the promise of return as I reached for the glinting object at the heart of the mirror. My fingers clamped around Ida's small key, cold and heavy with dread. I could scarcely comprehend what I had found when the shadows shrieked, a collective roar of fury as they dashed forward, engulfing everything. The last thing I saw was the girl's face in the mirror, her expression an amalgamation of hope and despair. "Don't let them take you," she gasped, and then the world shattered beyond recognition. And then, darkness fell once more. In the silence, I felt myself being drawn through time and space, flung between realities like a marionette severed from its strings. I held the key tightly, its coldness burning against my skin, and I could feel the echoes of laughter pressing down upon me heavier than ever as I drifted into the void. A new whisper called to me, "You will never escape." What awaited me on the other side was a question etched in my mind forever unanswered. As the shadows closed in, weaving their way through time and memory, just when I thought they would consume me completely, I opened my eyes once more only to find myself back in the dreaded corridor, the mirror standing before me, vibrant with life, yet beckoning with doom, and standing beside it, a reflection with eyes like mine, waiting to be set free. The corridor stretched infinitely into darkness, almost as if swallowing the light whole. I stumbled back, heart thundering, as I stood face to face with my own reflection, me eyes wide, frantic, and in a desperate plea for recognition. But the figure staring back was an echo of something far more sinister, a version of me adrift in suffocating despair. "Help me," it mouthed, but the sound was lost in the pandemonium of my own thoughts. The surrounding walls, once just crumbling plaster, pulsed with a restless energy. Whispered words hung in the atmosphere thick as fog, each syllable curling around me like tendrils of smoke. "Let me out," my reflection growled, the voice warped and chilling. "Who are you?" I stammered, stepping cautiously closer. The key I had found felt heavier against my palm, sensation tingling through my fingers, instinct screaming to release its grip. But a deep, morbid curiosity rooted me in place. "Your other half, your darkness," it replied, lips curling into a twisted smile. "Together we are stronger. Embrace me, and we can vanquish the shadows." "Oh," I retorted, horrified. The air trembled with the proximity of the spirits lurking just beyond sight. "You're not me. You're a trick." "Oh, but I am you," it insisted, glee threading through its tone like poison. "You can feel the thrill of chaos, the sweet release that shadows promise. Can't you hear them singing our song? They're calling for you." With a sputter of desperation, I backed away from the mirror, turning my back on the heinous figure. I could still feel its eyes boring into me, hot and hungry, but there was no time to resist. I must find a way out, a way to escape this torment. As I stumbled further down the corridor, the laughter bloomed into an all-consuming cacophony, leering shadows flitting from wall to wall. The oppressive darkness pressed tighter, suffocating and elastic, as if it could taste my fear. The air thickened with an almost palpable dread. The whispers muttered almost conspiratorially, growing louder, their taunts morphing into a chorus of anguish. "Join us in the void," they cooed, weaving their threads of despair around my throat. "We promise freedom." I turned again to glance at the mirror, but I was horrified to find it was no longer a mere reflection. It had unfurled and become a window, a gateway of nightmares crackling with energy. The figure within leaned ominously against the glass, beckoning and stretching toward me with grotesque limbs that morphed and twisted, seeking escape. "Come on. Let us play," it whispered seductively, a dark promise licking at my thoughts. "Together we can create chaos that will drown them out." Grasping the key, panic surged through me, forcing me toward the very energy that felt like home yet screamed of damnation. But I couldn't succumb. With every ounce of strength, I turned away and sprinted down the corridor, desperate to outpace what lurked behind me. Suddenly, the corridor jerked back, elongating like an endless slide, yawning into further darkness. As my footfalls echoed wildly against the stone, I sensed the shadows pursuing with insatiable hunger. They roared, a dark tide swelling fiercely, surging forward, pulling me closer to their abyssal pull. "Stop. You can't run from your fate," came a voice, sending a chill down my spine. An echo of the girl intermingled with the demon's laughter. The key began to vibrate violently in my grasp, longing for release. As if sensing my internal battle, the shadows circled back, their bodies merging into a grotesque horde of features, eyes and mouths sprouting indiscriminately, shrieks erupting in a chorus of betrayal and loss. My heart thudded as I grasped for a way to escape, when suddenly, a door materialized at the end of the corridor, bathed in an ethereal light that felt like a deceptive hand tempting me into paradise. Where does that lead? I thought desperately, but my reflection whispered from the mirror behind me. Its voice now tinged with venomous eagerness. Don't you want to know the truth? I hesitated, staring into the swirling mass of shadows behind me, the laughter echoing like a chime. The dark future they offered was intoxicating. Yet something within me screamed the opposite, whispering that the door could lead to salvation, or perhaps the ultimate horror. That I took a hesitant step toward the light, feeling the shadows claw at me from behind, trying to pull me back into their suffocating embrace. Just as I reached for the doorknob, the laughter crescendoed, a chaos of shrieks and cries, interlacing questions that filled the air with paranoia. Will you walk through it, or are you forever theirs? A sudden surge of warmth enveloped me as I turned the knob, heart racing. But the moment I flung the door wide open, the hall erupted behind me, a torrent of shadows surging forward. The last sound I heard was not laughter, but a deafening roar of rage, and in that moment, I leapt into the blinding light, joy and terror battling within me for dominance. I felt the air swelling against my lungs, the darkness at my back collapsing, and then silence. Everything went dark. And then it happened. The mirrors shattered, each fragment tumbling away and revealing what lay beyond the threshold where I would be confronted with my darkest fears yet. The truths lurking in the void. Just before I lost it all, I realized I was not alone. I awoke in a haze, a chill creeping over me as I blinked against the dim light illuminating my surroundings. I was no longer in that haunted corridor, no longer entrapped by the echoes of despair. I was in my bedroomy own damn sanctuary. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave, but it was tainted with a sense of foreboding, as if the shadows had silently followed me home. I sat up slowly, the sheets damp with sweat, heart still thrumming in my chest, racing like the moments before a nightmare. Had it all been a fragmented dream? I glanced around, searching for something to anchor me back to reality, finally letting out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. My phone lay next to me, its screen flickering to life as I brushed against it. Notifications flooded in, messages blinking. Where are you? We miss you. But those words felt hollow, echoing in desolation, taunting me. Rising to my feet, panic clawed at me. The house was disturbingly quiet, the stillness amplifying the thudding of my heart. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake free the feeling that something was terribly wrong. A shadow flitted past the corner of my eye, and I froze, every hair on the back of my neck prickling. I had left that darkness behind, had I really? Time to get strong. The veil won't conceal it forever. A whisper slithered into my ears, smooth yet laced with malice. I whipped around, but the room was empty. The shadows crept along the corners like sentient creatures, lurking, waiting. I took a cautious step back toward the door, panic rising like bile in my throat. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A video call from an old friend, Sarah. With shaking hands, I accepted. Her ghostly visage appeared on the screen, eyes wide with terror, mouth moving rapidly. You have to listen. I didn't know how to reach you. Sarah, what are you talking about? I stammered. Did you think it was over? That the shadows would let go? The moment you unlocked your past? Unlock what? I interrupted, the mounting dread clawing at my sanity, heart racing with memories I wanted to forget. Your past is coming back. The memories, the horror. You can't run from it. It's in the mirror. My breath caught, and my hands trembled. The mirror. The truth was buried deep there. What are you saying? I whispered, fear creeping back into my heart. Don't look. They're waiting for you. Suddenly, the video flickered, and shadows slipped in and out of view behind her, drawing nearer, faces emerging that should have been comforting but twisted into nightmarish contortions. I saw the familiar smiles of my friends, the ones I thought I'd lost. "Help us," they mouthed, their eyes pleading. "Sarah," I screamed, but the call cut out, leaving behind an eerie silence where dread settled like a heavy fog. Tremors shot through my limbs, and with a sickening realization, I understood. The darkness was not defeated. It had merely been lying in wait, cloaked in the guise of my safety. Ready to rise again, panic settled in my stomach like lead. The room felt smaller, the air constricting as I turned to the mirror hanging on my wall, its surface almost pulsating with life. I could almost hear it call my name, whispers intertwining with the memories of terror I had thought long buried. My heart raced, and I found myself drawn closer, an inexplicable force pulling me toward the shimmering glass. As my fingertips brushed against its reflective surface, images cascaded before me lost friends, anguished faces from the stories I once read, pleading for release. "You were chosen," the dark corners of the room murmured, the harmony of their voices wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. "Join us, embrace your truth." With a surge of fear, I drew my hand back, shaking my head violently, desperate to break free. But it was too late. My throat closed as they emerged from the depths of the mirror, figures writhing with infinite despair, their faces contorting into something maleficent and sad. "Choose or be chosen," they urged, a chilling echo reverberating off the walls. My reflection twisted behind them, and with sickening clarity, I realized the darkness had never truly left. It merely awaited my vulnerability, my fears, my reflection in that cursed piece of glass. I stumbled back, panic clawing at my throat, heart racing at the unwelcome truth. It was all a game, and I could never win. I dashed for the door, fumbling the handle, but it resisted, freeing my frantic mind to spiral into madness. "You can't escape this," they shrieked, shadows swirling around me. But I couldn't give in. I might have been trapped in this nightmare, but I would not surrender. With every ounce of strength, I turned back to the cursed Marora decision hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "I choose to remember," I whispered, determined to face whatever terrible truth awaited me. As the words left my lips, the shadows surged, swallowing me whole. I plunged into the shattered shards of glass, darkness enveloping me in a cacophony of lost voices, and for one heart-stopping moment I was free. Then came the laughter that echoed like a haunting melody, binding me, assuring me that this was never truly over. Now, no matter which door I opened, it was the shadow that greeted me. "Welcome home," and I realized, with an agonizing clarity, I was just one more reflection lost in the darkness.